the Monday Night Edge with Dan Leach. I know we're still in the preseason. We're through week one, which means we're closer, thank God, to the start of the regular season. And lots to get to on the show, but we are getting closer. We're getting closer to the Bull Rush $100,000 Survivor contest. We're getting closer to the start of the NFL season, the kickoff on Thursday night on September 4th. And we're getting closer to making tons of money from this show. And as I mentioned, the Survivor contest. And before we get into anything, I wanted to mention this for those that don't know, because this is the time to get involved with, I think, one of the coolest, most innovative things that I've heard about in a while. What we're really excited about here at Bull Rush and on this show is this $100,000 Survivor contest, which, I've been in Survivor contests for years, where you pick one team, you might have 500 people in it. You might have 20 of your friends. You might have 5,000 people in it. I have friends that have won, 100 grand for Survivor contests. This is taking it a step further and is giving you the chance to wager $100,000 of virtual money each week to try to be in the top 80% and advance to where you can start winning a lot of money. So you can make, all you got to do, the minimum is 2 pick slips each week. So that could be a 15-leg parlay. It could be a straight bet. It could be props. It could be whatever you want it to be. And if you're in the top 20%, you advance to the next week and your money starts over, a fresh 100K. It's pretty awesome. You can use, anybody that watches this show can use the promo code EDGE and get $5 off your $100 entry fee. And it goes for 20 weeks. Weeks, 1 through 19, if you win that week, you automatically gain entry into round 20, to week 20. And rounds 10 through 19, each have $1,000 in prizes each week. So first we'll get $500. Second, we'll get $350. Third will get, 350. And then third, we'll get 150. So you're getting cash each of those weeks. And as I mentioned, if you win any of the weeks 1 through 19, you're automatically into week 20. That's where the real money happens. And, first place is 50 grand. Second is 20 grand. Third is 10. Fourth is 5,000. Fifth is 2,500, all the way down to, 10th place gets 1,000. 11th gets 200. Everyone gets 200 that finishes from 11th on. You're going to get at least $200 if you get to that week 20. So go to bullrush.com, check it out, tell your friends, use that promo code EDGE, and you get $5 off. It's the least that Dan Leach, the Squatch, can give you as we get closer and closer to, obviously, my favorite time of the year. So many of yours, fantasy football happening, college football, of course, the pros. And we'll have the pros covered like a glove for you each and every week on this show, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. West Coast, and 1 p.m. Hawaii. I know I got some Hawaiian fans out there. And I also have fans in Australia. It'll be anywhere between 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day, live as you watch the Monday Night Edge. I know a lot of you out there in Australia, my friends that have been studying in Sydney and Melbourne, are going to watch Monday Night Football, even though it's, basically starts at 11 a.m. their time. They're going to watch it. They're at work the next day. So check that out. Please go to bullrush.com. But as I mentioned, we are a week through the preseason. And I say thank God, and I'm someone that bets on the preseason, so call me whatever you want. Many call me degenerate. But there is still value. You don't bet a lot in the preseason. I had a friend the other night that bet $500 on the Lions-Chargers game. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. These days, preseason just really doesn't matter. Not that it mattered in the past. It mattered more for, position battles and trying to figure out who your depth was. I can't give you a better example of what happened between my Detroit Lions and the Atlanta Falcons to why preseason matters not in the grand scheme of things. And now, obviously, it was a terrible situation with Maurice Morris, who looks like he's going to be fine. He's going to be back. He's back in Allen Park already, but he's going to be out for a little while. But, it could have been way worse than it was when he got injured in the early part of the fourth quarter. But, think about 5 years ago or 10, 15 years ago when they still had the 4 games of the preseason. You had that kind of third game so-called dress rehearsal. A lot of times the starters would play a series in the first game, maybe 2, or 3 series or a full, quarter in the second game, and then maybe the first half of the third game. These days, like Sean McVay and some other coaches, they won't play their starters for a single snap in the preseason. And I think it's good because a lot of these teams are using, like the Lions have, I'm here in Detroit, Lions have the Dolphins coming in this week because they play on Saturday at Ford Field. They have joint practices with them. The Lions done it with the Giants in the past, with many other teams. And obviously, unfortunately, we see a lot of fights in those situations because, things get heavy and tensions get mounted. But they use, a lot of coaches like using that. as opposed to, risking. If you think back years ago when Michael Vick got hurt towards Achilles at the beginning of the preseason, you don't want to lose your star quarterback, running back, defensive end. Aiden Hutchinson, for example, for the Lions, coming back off that terrible injury last year. He's 100%. You don't want to lose a guy like that in the preseason after coming off a terrible injury. So when I say the preseason doesn't matter, of course it matters for depth battles. It matters to look at backup quarterback situations or even starting situations like with Anthony Richardson, who obviously sadly got hurt again. And, what they're trying to do in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones. There's certain things around the league that it'll matter more as far as competition in those games. But overall, it means nothing. For example, you had a 70-yard field goal kicked in the preseason. It's not in the record book because it doesn't count. But if you didn't see what happened with Atlanta and Detroit after that Maurice Morris injury, there's about 14 or so minutes left in the fourth quarter. And Dan Campbell talked about this earlier today. And Raheem Morris obviously has talked about it as well. And a lot of Lions fans and NFL fans have become big fans of the Falcons, which they deservedly so. Both coaches decided they were going to end the game. Now, obviously, you can't just do that unilaterally. The league had to come in and eventually, after I think there was a Falcons snapped the ball. The teams, Dan Campbell and Falcons head coach Raheem Morris, of course, Dan Campbell, the Lions head coach, got together and said, listen, we're just going to keep snapping the ball. So, New York got involved. The NFL offices got involved and said, all right, we'll just suspend the game. And that was it. But to see the images of the teams coming together at midfield, praying together, even though this was a game where you're trying to go out there and do your best, the wins and losses never really matter in the preseason, but, no one likes to lose. To see them understand that life is more important than a football game, because we love sports. I love sports. I've been in love with sports since I was a very young kid. So I get that sports matter to so many of us. That's why we're doing this show. And yes, a lot of people were bitching about their bets on that game, and people were ripping them on social media, which they should have. Because even I would have been mad. I knew my bet would get voided, but who cares? This guy could have been paralyzed. Thank God he isn't. But it just shows you that as much as we love sports, this is why I love doing shows like this, why I've loved covering sports for the last 25 years of my life. I mean, I've been into sports since I was a young kid, but I really started working professionally in college, late 90s, early 2000s. And for those that are maybe watching for the first time, I'm someone that's been in the media business for a long time, hosted various shows, done a lot of play-by-play, covered all the pro teams in Detroit for years, covered Super Bowls, Final Fours, etc. You'll learn more about me as we go forward. And if you did get a chance to watch our liftoff edition, our sneak peek, if you will, last week, please check it out on all the different platforms you're watching on right now. And obviously, you can go to bullrush.com for any information on that as well. But it's one of those things where, sometimes things are more important. And health and togetherness and understanding that, yes, they're playing for money and their livelihoods and they're putting their bodies at risk. That's all well and good and very important. That's why they make a ton of money. And many people will consider them heroes, even though some people think they shouldn't be heroes. Athletes definitely can be heroes. They inspire people. To see the togetherness that the Falcons and Lions had after a terrible injury, an ambulance comes on the field to take Maurice Morris to the hospital. He's seizing on the field after his head got snapped back. I thought that was beautiful. And to those of you that were bitching about your preseason bets, I think you need to be better. I don't want to talk down to anybody. I love y'all. I'm a degenerate gambler myself. I bet on, marble racing during COVID, at least. Australian, horses. But there's more important things than a preseason $5, $15, maybe even $5,000 bet. There's more important things than that. I thought what the Lions and Falcons were able to do, and, what Raheem Morris, because it was obviously at Atlanta, and him and Dan Campbell getting together, it was something really, really cool that you don't see a lot, that you hate to see there be an injury like that could cost someone their ability to walk. Obviously Damar Hamlin could have died a few years back on Monday Night Football. So there's, thank God, not a lot of these moments, but there's enough of them that it gives you pause and gives you a chance to realize what's really important. And what was really important right then was the teams getting together at midfield in that beautiful circle. If you saw some of the pictures and video, and praying together, wishing Mo Morris the best, understanding that they didn't need to play the rest of that game. They didn't want to play the rest of that game, much like the Bills and the Bengals game where they suspended it when Damar Hamlin went down. And I just think it gives you great perspective. As much as we are so excited for football, as much as I can't wait to go to the Michigan opener against New Mexico and then fly the next morning at 6 a.m. to go see Oasis in New York. It's going to be a busy weekend for me, but I couldn't be more excited about it. We can't wait for football, but we can't always just have nothing but football. You got to have some perspective. I like to talk about that with things that I've gone through in my life. I'm 14 years sober, so obviously I've got perspective on things. I thought that, that game on Friday night was filled with perspective about, yes, how much we love sports, but also what really, truly does matter. So hats off to Dan Campbell, hats off to Ryan Morris, the players themselves, and all the fans that thought that was a special thing out of a tough situation. Another thing that obviously was huge this past, speaking of things that matter more in the preseason than others, Shedeur Sanders. That was a big deal for him to get things going in his first, taste of live action. And I've said this for a while. I know this show just launched, but I've talked about this on various shows that I do. I think the Browns, as much as they completely destroyed their franchise with the stupid Deshaun Watson signing, they might have saved their franchise with how far Shedeur Sanders fell and how they were able to get him. He is going to be really, really good. I know he brings a lot of baggage in the sense of, the primetime Sanders family aura around them and all of the film crews. I get all that. But this guy, I know it's a preseason game against some backups, but he went out there. He looked crisp. He looked sharp. He was 14 to 23 for 138 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns. I thought that was a big moment so far of the NFL preseason as we get ready to figure out what these teams are going to be able to do in the regular season. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to have a solid rookie year. He might not start the whole season at quarterback, but I think he's got a great chance to be a factor. If you haven't seen the mic'd up footage of him and Myles Garrett on the sideline, do a search for that on social media and check it out. It's on my social media as well. You can always follow me, by the way, on Twitter. I won't call it X. On Twitter at Dan Leach DTM. That's my Twitch. That's my TikTok. If you're lucky enough to be a personal Facebook friend, it's Danny Leach. But follow me on all the socials, and you'll get all the stuff that we do on this show, all the great promo codes we'll have for Bull Rush stuff at Dan Leach DTM. And yes, the DTM stands for Dan the Man. I didn't name myself that. It started with my mother when I was 7 years old. I was a big Dan Marino fan, and she put Dan Marino on the cover of Sports Illustrated on my fridge. It said Dan the Man. It took off from there. So I'm not that arrogant. I'm just confident. But Shedeur Sanders, listen, solid stuff for him to start. Another big, news and notes situation out of week 1 of the preseason was a guy that a lot of fantasy players are excited about. A lot of Tennessee Titans fans are excited about. A lot of people that are going to bet props during the season are excited about. And that's Tyjae Spears, the Titans running back, who's going to be out for a few weeks. Coach Brian Callahan said on Sunday. They don't expect him, by the way, to play any of the preseason. He had a high ankle sprain during the preseason opener against the Bucs. This is a kid that is going to be very, very valuable in fantasy leagues, very valuable to the Titans offense, and obviously a great guy to bet props on. So luckily, it doesn't seem to be terrible, but he's going to be out for the rest of the preseason. And by the way, speaking of our great peeps from Bull Rush, talk about having fantasy and sports and football covered like a glove. Right now, on their way back from what was a very successful, incredible experience at the Fantasy Football Expo in Canton, Ohio, at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is my man, Bull Rush CEO Trent Hare, and social media manager Devin Shire from the Shires of England. I believe they're on the high-speed train right now. They started, they were in Canada, but they took the train from Tokyo. So I think they're back somewhere in middle America, maybe through Amish country, headed on their way back to the Bull Rush headquarters. But they had a great time. There'll be much more to come from that over the next few weeks on this show. When we have Davin back on and get to see exactly what the experience was like for him to be there in person. And how about my man, Neil, the Bull Rush CMO? He is at Bet Bash right now at Circa in Las Vegas, one of my favorite places on earth. My good friend Derek Stevens Casino. My man, BB, I won't say his full name, nickname on the show because it could have some younger people watching, but he runs the Stadium Swim. Very connected with Derek Stevens and his crew going back years ago from previous, radio jobs that I've had where they were big sponsors. But whenever I go out there, they always take great care of me. So if you're out in Vegas, which unfortunately I was supposed to be 3 weeks ago and ended up in the hospital with food poisoning and had to cancel the trip, I'll be out there soon. It's my second home. Go say hi to Neil. He's at Bet Bash at Circa. If you have not been to Circa, let's say you're watching the show or going to Vegas this week and you've never been to Circa, which is in downtown Vegas, you need to go. It's like a strip casino downtown. So go check that out and say hi to my man Neil at Bet Bash. He'll be there all week. But I'm really excited to find out just what Fantasy Football Expo was like for my man Trent and Davin, my men, if you will. I was talking to them a little bit earlier today, and they just said how incredible the crowd was, how packed it was, how knowledgeable some of the people there in fantasy football were. They've been drafting nonstop for the last few weeks. I think it's crazy to draft before the end of the preseason, even though most of these starters aren't playing anymore. But it looks like they had a great time, so we'll have a lot to come, from that as well. All right, as we're going to do every week on this show, obviously now, but of course in the regular season, much more heavy in the regular season, where I'm going to give you my picks. I'll let you know what I'm doing in the Survivor pool, as I'm going to play along with everybody with a real entry. It's not, not a fake entry, but we found the lawyer signed off on it, so I can be in the Survivor pool for Bull Rush. But we'll have all that stuff going forward. But during this preseason period, as we lead up to the start of that kickoff game on Thursday with the defending champs on September 4th on NBC, I'm going to give you a lot of futures because I think there's a lot of value in betting now, especially now as opposed to like right before the season starts, right after the season starts. We're going to look at those as the season goes on, look at different odds for win totals and division odds and Super Bowl futures and awards futures throughout the season as well. But you really get a ton of value before things obviously start. What if and I'm going to get to, one of my guys that I really like that I'm going to give out on this show, and he's Jaden Daniels. We'll get to that in a second. But what if you really like this, play on Jaden Daniels for MVP? And in the first 3 weeks of the year, Daniels right now is 10-1 to win the MVP. If in the first 3 weeks of the year, the guy throws for 14 touchdowns and just looks like he's continuing to take over the world like he did last year and is lifting off where he left off last season, his odds are going to go way down. So there's times where you want to pull the trigger before the season, and I got plays for you throughout this entire preseason period for that. Let's start with this, though. And I love Super Bowl futures, but I like the exact matchups more because let's be honest, we're in this period right now. If you want to go back to 2001 in the NFL, when they created the 4-division format with 4 teams in each division, it used to be 3 with 5. Now there's 4 teams, 4 divisions, each conference, 32 teams. Since they went to that in 2001, so we're going on, 25 years now, the NFL has been filled with parity. Not that there wasn't parity at times in the 80s and 90s, but it wasn't like it is now. Back in the 80s and 90s, you had the Niners, you had the Redskins, you had Buffalo, you had, the Steelers back in the 70s that just dominated. These days, you got teams going worst to first, first to worst, teams that come out of nowhere to make the Super Bowl or at least the NFC or AFC title game. It's a different era. So to me, the odds, you look at some of the Super Bowl odds, top 5 or 10, sometimes can be 10-1, 12-1 or less. There's not a ton of value there. To me, you think about picking an exact matchup, and that's where you got a lot of value. So I've got 2 for you. We're going to start with Buffalo and Washington. If you watched the show last week, you know that I'm very high on the Bills. I'm very high on the Commanders. I wish I could say the Lions were my pick to win the Super Bowl. They're not. I hope I'm wrong. Like the Lions will be in the mix. They're going to have a tough time without Ben Johnson as coordinator. I don't think it's going to be as tough as some think, but I'm not touching the Lions at 10-1. And, you look at the Bills and their futures odds. Buffalo is sitting there at 7-1. That's not great value. You look at the Washington Commanders. They're sitting there at 20-1. I gave that out last week. Actually, I think it was 22-1 last week. It's down to 20. That's not terrible. But how about taking the exact matchup? You don't have to bet as much, and you can win much more. Buffalo and Washington is 41-1 right now. So that's, for those who don't understand what an exact matchup is, obviously it's like it says, it's picking a team from the AFC, picking a team from the NFC. If they both make the Super Bowl, no matter who wins, you win. So right now that is 41-1. So I love that. That's one of my favorite preseason plays as far as what the exact matchup goes. And then also Baltimore and the Lions. I know they're not my official pick. The Lions, I think, are going to have a great chance to kind of correct the wrongs. I covered that game against the Commanders last year. I said that there was no team that scared me more that round than Washington, even though it wasn't home. I picked the Commanders to be in that game to the end, and I unfortunately was right. I think the Lions with Jared Goff, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Hunchback on Aiden Hutchinson on defense, I think are going to be very, very, very good again, even though the division has improved, the NFC North. Or I like to call it the NFC Central from back in the day when Tampa was in the division. But to me, the Lions have a chance. And Baltimore is the favorite to win the Super Bowl right now. They're like 7 to 6.5 to 1. But a Baltimore Lions matchup is 28 to 1. So 2 exact matchup plays for you for this week. And I'm going to give a lot more of those out because I really believe there's some tremendous value in exact matchup plays. Win totals that I got for you. We gave some of these out last week as well. Yeah, and, you know, if you weren't on the show or watching the show last week or didn't watch the replay, what were you thinking? You should. But I just want to go through quickly what we gave out last week. Did give out Washington 20 to 1 or 22 to 1. Now it's 20 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Chargers 26 to 1 with my man Jim Harbaugh, former Michigan coach. Big Wolverine fan, as you'll see. Chargers over 9.5 wins. Bucks over 9.5 wins. I think the Bucks are being totally undervalued with Baker Mayfield, well coached, very talented team. I like the Bucks to go over 9.5. So those are the plays we gave out last week. When it comes to win totals for the show this week, I'm looking at the Bears. And I both my plays on win totals are unders going against the grain, against the popular sexy pick. I mean, you know, you get these all the time. If you like March Madness, there's always those sexy, you know, upset picks, the Cinderella picks. Most times they're wrong. If you watch the CBS show or the ESPN bracketology, there'll be a consensus of like, you know, it's going to be Morehead State. You got it. And everyone takes them and they always lose. It's always the random one. You got to, you know, you got to trust people like me that follow this stuff. Not to toot my horn or anything. But a lot of times the sexy picks are the ones that the public are on. And we all know, let's be honest, you're going to be watching the show, so you're going to win, buddy, because I'm going to give you some great ideas. The public loses the majority of the time. That's why the casinos are palatial. That's why sports books are, you know, DraftKings has reported their earnings. In another job that I have, I do some financial stuff. And there's a reason these companies are making tons of money. Fortunately, some of them spend too much money advertising. They became legal in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, etc. But the majority of them are making tons of money because the public is wrong more often than not. This time, I think that the experts, many of them, even some that I trust, you know, guys that cover the NFL, handicappers, etc., many that I trust, I think are wrong. The Bears win total is 7.5. Everyone's talking about going over. I think Caleb Williams is going to be phenomenal. I think the Bears are going to be a little better than they were last year. The Bears play in a division with Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota. Minnesota's got J.J. McCarthy. The Green Bay Packers have Jordan Love and are a team that better are picking to win the Super Bowl. I think the Bears can improve, but it doesn't mean to me that they're going to be this 8, 9, 10 win team in Caleb Williams' second year. As good as I think he has a chance of being, I just don't see it in 2025. So to me, I have a big play on the under. I love it. Bears were 5-12 last season. I think the Bears are going to be similar to that. There'll be some exciting upset wins, but they're not going to win, in my opinion, more than 7 games. And you get less juice. The over is juice. I think it's minus 125 at most sports books. But you always shop around. We'll tell you that on the show all the time. Always shop around to see the best lines. I'm a big golf bettor. You would not believe the difference between some of the sports books. Like one will have a guy that I like at 50 to 1. The other one with 30 to 1. So you're giving up 20 to 1 if you don't spend 5 minutes shopping lines. It's crazy. So shop around, but the over is juiced on the Bears because it's such a sexy pick. I like the under. And I think another team that is getting way too much hype, and yes, there's a history of talent with the franchise. They've got multiple Super Bowl wins, but they've got an unproven quarterback in Bo Nix, who, yes, had his moments last year, and they were a 10-7 team and lost to the wild card to the Bills, got killed. But the Broncos win total is 8.5. I just think that is too many in a division with Kansas City, the Chargers, the schedule they have. Can the Broncos win 9 games? Sure. They won 10 last year in Bo Nix's first season. But I think their schedule is tougher. And I think they're gonna be in some games that they would have won last year, and they're gonna lose them this year. Because a lot of people didn't know what Bo Nix had to bring. And the Broncos had a great defense, which they'll have again. I just think the offense could be not as great as some think it will right away. So I like the under, which I know is a very, 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 the over for the Broncos. The Broncos to win 10 or 11 games. Broncos to go to the Super Bowl. Broncos to win the AFC. There's all these bets that I'm seeing people put up on different articles they're writing or radio shows or TV shows that I'm watching. I'm not buying it. So under on the Broncos, 8.5. And then also, by the way, the juice is on the over, so you're going to save money there. And under on the Bears minus 7.5. And then, as I said, another thing that I love to do, aside from just the regular betting, which we'll do each and every week on the show, whether it's parlays that I like, same game parlays, spreads, totals, whatever, is betting on awards. And it's kind of a heartbreaking story, but I don't just talk about my wins. I got to talk about the losses too. But a couple years ago, the Lions were coming out of the doldrums after that, first terrible year and the second year where they improved in the second half of the season. And then, they were going to be a team that was going to be reckoned with, obviously, before they went to the NFC title game that year. Dan Campbell, coach of the year odds were, at one point, I think they were 80-1. And I remember I was on air at the Lions flagship station here in Detroit, and I gave out the play on the radio. And I'm not trying to say I have that much power. I mean, it's a powerful station, but I'm not saying I'm the one that moved this line. But I gave it out. I'm forgetting, it was like mid-season. I know that the Lions were about to have a big game. They ended up winning that game. That's why the odds kind of went crazy. But I gave it out, and it was like close to 100-1. Because at that point, no one was thinking about Dan Campbell, like, Stefanski and the Browns. Like, there were some other teams that were just, the odds were better for those other coaches. And I gave it out on air, and I remember it went from 100-1 to like 40-1 to like 20-1 to like 5-1 within a few days. And I wasn't the only one, I'm sure, but I know that I'm sure giving that out and see all these people bet locally in Detroit on different legal sports app here made it, do something. But I was going to win. I think I was a $25 bet. So I was going to win $2,500. Maybe it was $50. It was $50 bet. I was going to win $5,000. And let's be honest, if the Lions didn't get jobbed in Dallas that year with that ridiculous, I mean, they went for the 2-point conversion 3 times. They should have only done it once. But when they did report, when they said that the Lions player didn't report, I think was it a Thursday night game? I know it was nationally televised. I think it was Thursday night or maybe Saturday night. But if that doesn't happen and the Lions win that game, they would have been the 1 seed. He would have won Coach of the Year. They lost that game. Remember, the Browns had a crazy year with Stefanski. He ends up being Coach of the Year. It was ridiculous to me. But you can see value in taking some of these award bets early, and you can see value in taking some of these award bets in the season when maybe a guy's kind of still off the radar. His odds aren't showing the potential. You get a guy at 50-1. He ends up becoming the favorite. You get a guy at 60-1. He might not win the award, but at the end of the year, he's the second or third favorite. That's what you're looking for. That's what I'm always going to try to identify for you. So I've got a few that I really like. These are bets that I made a while ago, but the odds haven't really changed much. First, for the MVP, and I alluded to this earlier, Jaden Daniels, 10-1. Washington, I think, could be that team, and they're not off the radar anymore. I mean, they went to the NFC title game last year. But this is a team that is going to be a sexy Super Bowl pick. They're 20-1 to win it. Like, to win the NFC, they're around 10 or so to 1 or 8 or so to 1. Actually, I want to give you the latest on that because, I mean, things are changing as they go. We always want to make sure we're on top of things. Yeah, right now the Commanders are, they're 10-1. 10-1 to win the NFC. But if they're a team that's going to do these kind of things and make a move back to the NFC title game or beyond, it's going to be because of Jaden Daniels. Not just him, but he's going to be a huge part. And to get him at 10-1 to win the MVP, I love it. And now we all know how important Saquon Barkley was to what the, obviously leading the Giants, going to the division rival Eagles, and just what he was able to do in their run last year. His few MVP odds are 60-1. Now listen, he's getting older. It's going to be tough to repeat what he did, but Saquon Barkley is 60-1 to win the MVP. And we know that the running backs don't really win the MVP a lot, but I think there's a lot of value there for Saquon. And I think there's a ton of value for Jaden Daniels, who has a great chance to win the MVP. And 10-1, I think that a lot of times you'll hear me talk about what the true odds are. Sometimes you can actually computate that. Other times it's more of just kind of what your thought process is. I think the true odds for Jaden Daniels should be closer to like 6-1. And if you're wondering who the favorites are to win the MVP, obviously Lamar Jackson. His team is the favorite to win the Super Bowl. He's 4.5-1. Mahomes is 6.5-1. Josh Allen 6-1, and Burrow is 6-1. Then you got Daniels at 10-1. Another one of my teams that I like to maybe make a move towards a kind of a surprise Super Bowl, if you will, is the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh in year 2. Justin Herbert's 20-1. But I think Daniels should be on. I mean, he's not as proven, obviously, as Allen and Burrow and Mahomes and obviously Jackson. And his team isn't as favored as theirs are. But he is on the track, I believe, to be a top 3 quarterback in this league. And this year, he might become a top 3 quarterback in this league. And if they go as far as they have a chance of going, 10-1 is pretty good. And as I said, if they start off with him throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns in his first 2 or 3 games, 351 game, 380 another game, and just looking ridiculous, his odds are going to go way down. He might become the favorite. So this is the time to bet that. And then I got 2 rookie of the year, 1 offensive rookie of the year bet and 1 defensive rookie of the year bet. We'll start with the rookie of the year bet on the offense. And I absolutely love this kid. I watched him at North Carolina. I think he fits in perfectly with Harbaugh and that run, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Bo Schembechler, back in the day, Michigan mentality. Obviously, he had that more when he was the coach of the Wolverines than he is as the Chargers, because the NFL is not as much 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's more of a high wire act and a balanced offense attack. But I just love what Omarion Hampton is, what he did at North Carolina, his running style, and what he's going to be in this great situation with the solid line. I know Chargers lost Slater recently, but they're going to have a good offensive line. They're going to use him a lot, and Hampton is 8.5 to 1 to win the Rookie of the Year. Of course, everyone's betting on Genty. Ashton Genty, he's the favorite. They're almost even money, not almost, but 2.5 to 1. Cam Ward, a lot of times these awards are won by quarterbacks. We know that. He's 3 to 1. And then you got Hampton as your third favorite. Travis Hunter's 11 to 1 for offensive Rookie of the Year. We're going to get to him in a minute. And McMillan is 12 to 1. And then Travion Henderson, the former Buckeye, is you'll learn pretty quickly. I'm a Wolverine fan, so I hate Ohio State or the Ohio University. He's 16 to 1, but I really love Omarion Hampton to win Rookie of the Year at 8.5 to 1. But talking about Rookie of the Year on the other side of the ball, I mentioned that Travis Hunter is the fourth favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Well, how about Defensive Rookie of the Year? He actually is a smaller favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year than he is Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's 11 to 1 to win Offensive. He is 10 to 1 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And I think that Travis Hunter, obviously playing wide receiver on offense and quarterback on defense for the Jaguars, who should be an improved team this year, I love his odds to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Isn't that crazy, though? You never really have two-way players anymore anyway. But to have a guy that's in the top 4 odds for both the Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year award is amazing to me. But I love the value on Travis Hunter. He's looked great in camp. I know that, you look at the favorite, Abdul Carter, he's going to have a huge year. He's a worthy favorite almost, he's basically plays 2 to 1, 185 to plus 185. So not really any value there. Jelon Walker is almost 10 to 1, and Mikel Williams is 10 to 1. And then you got Hunter there 10 to 1, Mike Green 13 to 1, Mason Graham, the Wolverine, from 14 to 1. So to me, I think Hunter's great value. Great value on Hunter at 10 to 1. Obviously you kind of split the difference away. You want to take it for both offensive and defensive. I think he's got a better chance to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, making some huge impact plays at quarterback. So there's some plays for you as we enter into preseason week number 2. Let me just run them down really quickly for you again. If you're just joining the show, or if you didn't catch them all, I have 2 exact matchup bets for you. Bills and Washington in Super Bowl 60. That's 41 to 1. Baltimore and Detroit. Exact match of the Super Bowl 28 to 1. Bears under the 7.5 wins for the year. Denver under 8.5, Denver under 8.5 wins for the year. Going against a lot of experts on both those plays, which is one of the things I like to do. MVP odds for Jaden Daniels 10 to 1. Saquon Barkley 60 to 1. 2 plays I've already made. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Omarion Hampton 8.5 to 1. He's got that perfect situation for the Chargers, and the Defensive Rookie of the Year, Travis Hunter at 10 to 1. All right, so there's some plays for you. We're going to continue to, throughout this preseason, talk about stuff like that, all the big stories out of the preseason as we get you closer and closer and more ready for the start of football when it actually matters, when the games count and you don't kick 70-yard field goals that will never go down as the record. You believe that? 70-yard field goal. But obviously it was in the preseason, so doesn't count. But I want to, before we get out of here, once again, follow me on social media at Dan Leach DTM. We'll have my man Davin Shire back next week in the producer's chair, because right now he's on that high-speed train coming back from the Fantasy Football Expo at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. So please follow me on all socials at Dan Leach DTM. But please check out bullrush.com. the Survivor contest. If you missed this earlier, you can use the code EDGE when you sign up for $5 off the $100 entry fee. But it really is just taking a Survivor pool to the next level. Because a lot of you out there love Survivor pools, but a lot of you out there like me love to bet props, love to bet spreads, love to bet, totals. You could do any combination of that. You could do parlays. You could do props and spreads and totals and props and whatever you want. And the way the Survivor contest works is it's 20 weeks long, $100,000 in prizes. If you win any of the weeks 1 through 19, you're automatically entered into the round 20, where everyone gets at least $200, if not $50,000 for the winner. And the top 80% advance each week. The top 20% sadly are out, but I think everyone watching the show, if you take my advice and others' advice, they're going to be in that top 80%. And I'm going to be playing in this as well. So I'm going to give you whatever I'm playing. You can count my picks if you want. I mean, at your own risk. If I lose and have a bad week, don't blame me. But I'll be playing along to see how long I can last. But it's such an incredible concept where it's not just picking one team. You can only use them once a year. No point spreads. It's using all the spreads. It's using all the props, and see what you can do with $100,000 in virtual money each week. It resets each week. It's just awesome. So check that out at bullrush.com. Use my code EDGE, get $5 off, and get it going. All right, that's going to do it for us today on the Monday Night Edge. I can't wait till we're doing this show and we are going to be able to preview the Monday Night Football game. It's obviously no Monday Night game tonight, but that's going to be sick. But of course, we're getting closer and closer, my friends. You can feel it in the air. You can smell it in the atmosphere. Football is upon us. All right, until next time, check out bullrush.com. Get into that Survivor contest. Use that code EDGE. Follow me on social media at Dan Leach DTM. Thoughts and love to my guys Trent and Davonshire on their way back to the Fantasy Football Expo. And if you're in Vegas this week, go say hi to Neil, the Bull Rush CMO. He is at Circa all week in Las Vegas at the Bet Bash. Something that I feel like how could I not be a thing called Bet Bash? Check that out as well. And this show will air every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 West, 1 p.m. Hawaii, 6 a.m. the next morning in Australia to 9 a.m. So please stay tuned on all the different platforms you're watching it on right now, and we'll be adding more as we go along as well. Until next time, Dan Leach saying, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. You've been watching the Monday Night Edge, powered by Bull Rush, with yours truly, Dan Leach. Till next time, we'll see you then.